Good evening. I'm going to continue reading from this book, Infiltration by Taylor R. Marshall, The Plot to Destroy the Church from Within, and the foreword is already been uploaded by Bishop ATHANASIUS SCHNEIDER. And before I begin reading, I will say a prayer in a few moments. But before that, I'll read from page 4 so that you know whether to listen or not. If you do not believe that Satan exists, put down the book, or in this instance, turn off the video or audio. Moreover, if you believe that the Catholic Church can be purified merely by updated rules, policies, and canonical procedures, you will find little promise in the historical diagnosis and proposed cure found in the book or the video audio on it. And St. Paul stated, "For we are not contending against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places and high places." Ephesians 6:12. The crisis of the Catholic Church relates to the intrusion of these rulers of this present darkness, and she can only be purified by sanctified warfare against the demonic. So if you don't believe in Satan and you believe that the church can sort itself out without supernatural support, prayers, warfare, spiritual warfare, prayers against the rulers of present darkness in the church, Satan himself has to be cast out. The smoke of Satan is already there, and worse. So Pope Leo the 13th is about now in chapter 5. He sees demons gather on Rome. So before I begin, I'm going to say two little prayers in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Holy Michael Archangel, defend me in this day of battle. Be my safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, I humbly pray, and do thy Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust down to hell Satan and all the wicked evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. This chapter goes from page 33 to page 40. As early as 1859, Pope Pius IX decreed that a series of prayers be recited after all low masses within the Papal States. Priests and laity were to kneel and pray the Hail Mary 3 times, followed by the Salve Regina, and then prayer for the church. And at the bottom there's a note. This 1859 prayer for the church was composed of 4 orations taken from the Missa B Maria Virginis, the Missa Pro Remissionem Peccatorum, the Missa Pro Passe, and the Missa Pro Intimis. The reason for the additions to the Holy Mass is the topic of a conspiracy theory, but in this case it is a papally acknowledged conspiracy of socialism and communism, addressed directly by Pope Pius IX in his Encyclical Nostis et Nobiscum. But if the faithful scorn both the fatherly warnings of their pastors and the commandments of the Christian law recalled here, and if they let themselves be deceived by the present-day promoters of plots deciding to work with them in their perverted theories of socialism and communism, let them know and earnestly consider what they are laying up for themselves. The divine judge will seek vengeance on the day of wrath. Until then, no temporal benefit for the people will result from their conspiracy, but rather new increases of misery and disaster. For man is not empowered to establish new societies and unions which are opposed to the nature of mankind. If these conspiracies spread throughout Italy, there can only be one result. If the present political arrangement is shaken violently and totally ruined by reciprocal attacks of citizens against citizens, by their wrongful appropriations and slaughter, in the end, some few, enriched by the plunder of many, will seize supreme control to the ruin of all. Those conspiracies of which Pius IX spoke came to pass, as we have seen, in 1870, but his direct successor, Pope Leo XIII, mystically observed an apparition revealing an infiltration deeply demonic, and now settling upon Rome itself. Leo XIII identified this satanic infiltration as being accomplished by secret societies that foster demonic worship and rebellion. In his 1886 encyclical Quod Multum, he refers to this infiltrating work. It is enough to recall rationalism and naturalism, those deadly sources of evil whose teachings are everywhere, freely distributed. We must then add the many allurements to corruption, the opposition to or open defection from the Church by public officials, the bold obstinacy of secret societies here and there, a curriculum for the education of youth without regard for God. And there's a point 18 here which says Pope Leo XIII encyclical on the liberty of the Church, Quod Multum, 22nd of August 1886, number 3. Pope Leo XIII would also lament that this conspiracy has not remained distant. By way of conspiracies, corruptions and violence, it has finally come to dominate Italy and even Rome. In view of this new demonic infestation, Leo XIII in 1886 added to the Low Mass a newly composed prayer to Saint Michael, the one that I just prayed. Holy Michael, Archangel, defend us in this day of battle. Be our safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust down to hell Satan and all the wicked evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. And it's come right down to this present age, and many of us use it with good reason. It is the same prayer to Saint Michael that we are familiar with today. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. And the point on Pope Leo XIII encyclical is on Freemasonry, Custodi di quella fede, 8th of December 1892, number 3. The prayers, after Low Mass arranged by his predecessor Pope Pius IX, were essentially Marian in scope. Why then did Pope Leo XIII feel compelled to add this apocalyptic prayer to Saint Michael against Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls? Why? In 1931, Monsignor Karl Volk, 1874 to 1941, related the following legend about the origin of this prayer. A rather peculiar circumstance induced Pope Leo XIII to compose this powerful prayer. After celebrating Mass one day, he was in a conference with the cardinals. Suddenly he sank to the floor. Several doctors were summoned, and one found no sign of a pulse. The very life seemed to have ebbed away from the fragile and aging body. Suddenly he recovered and said, "What a horrible vision I've been shown!" He saw the ages to come, the seductive powers and ravings of the devils against the church in every land. But Saint Michael appeared in the moment of greatest distress and cast Satan and his cohorts back into the abyss of hell. Such was the occasion that caused Pope Leo XIII to prescribe this prayer for the universal church. There is a picture of him, but I didn't show you. I will show you it. He's very old and frail, but he has a beautiful, I would say, saintly smile. And that was him in 1898. A beautiful smile and beautiful holy eyes, like Padre Piu's eyes are holy and beautiful. Beautiful eyes. I think saints do have beautiful eyes, don't you? So, point 20, Sancti Michael Michel Archangel, defend nos in prole contra nequitiam et insidias diaboli esto praesidium, imperet fili Deus, supplices de premur tuque precepts militiae caelisti Satanam aliosque spiritus malignos qui ad perditionem, arundum, pervagantur in mundo, divina virtuete, in infernum detrudo. Amen. Calvo, Wach, Satan, Alting, Gieselberger, 1931, 31-32. This translation of the German quote derives from Kevin Simmons, Pope Leo XIII, and Prayer to St. Michael, Boonville, New York, Preserving Christian Publications, 2018. Excuse me a moment, got a tickle. Continuing on page 37, critics point out that Monsignor Ruggles' account in 1931 is 45 years removed from Leo's composition of the prayer to St. Michael and his inclusion of it in low masses in 1886. The fact that Pope Leo XIII added a specific prayer to St. Michael for our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil need not require a mystical apparition to the Holy Father. Nevertheless, a certain Cardinal, Giovanni Battista Nasali Rocca di Corneliano, 1872 to 1952, testified that he had repeatedly received precisely the same story from Pope Leo XIII's personal secretary, Monsignor Rinaldo Angeli, 1851 to 1914. And Simmons would have said that about the Christians in the know, who prowl about the world, has a historical explanation which has been shared numerous times by the Holy Father's most faithful secretary, who was very close to him through most of his pontificate, Monsignor Rinaldo Angeli. Pope Leo XIII truly had a vision of demonic spirits who were gathering on the eternal city of Rome. From that experience which he shared with the prelate, and certainly with others in confidentiality, comes the prayer which he wanted the whole church to recite, and we should still be reciting it after Mass, but they stopped it in 1962 or thereabouts. This was the prayer which he recited, and we heard this many times in the Vatican Basilica with a strong, powerful voice which resonated in an unforgettable way in the universal silence beneath the vaults of the most important temple of Christianity. Not only that, but he wrote a special exorcism which is found in the Ritual Romanum with the title Exorcismus in Satanam et Angelos Apostasios. The pontiff recommended to the bishops and priests that these exorcisms be recited often in their diocese and in their parishes by priests who had received the proper faculties from their ordinaries. However, to set a good example, he recited it himself frequently throughout the day. In fact, another prelate familiar with the pontiff used to tell us that even on his walks through the Vatican gardens, he would take a small book worn from much use from his pocket and recite his exorcism with fervent piety and deep devotion. The small book is still preserved by a noble family in Rome, whom we know well. The account given by the personal secretary of Pope Leo XIII adds the historical explanation that the Pope saw a vision of demonic spirits who were gathering on the Eternal City. The Pope's secretary notes that Leo XIII not only added the prayer to St. Michael at the end of Low Mass, but also that he composed a more lengthy exorcism prayer in 1890 to be used by bishops and priests throughout the world. This is the testimony of the Pope's secretary, the man closest to the heart, thoughts and words of Pope Leo XIII on these matters. The alleged conversation between God and Satan, the demonic apparition to Pope Leo XIII, was established with apocryphal details shortly after this time. In 1947, that's 75 years ago, Father Domenico Pesceno recounted that Pope Leo XIII was assisting at a second Mass after having celebrated Holy Mass himself. This version claims that the Pope gazed at something above the head of the priest celebrant and then rushed away from the chapel to his private study, where he immediately composed the prayer to St. Michael. Father Pesceno then adds a provocative detail to the story, reporting that Pope Leo XIII saw Satan himself during the Mass. And on the bottom it's a point of 22, translated by Brian Gonzalez and found in Pope Leo XIII, and the prayer to St. Michael by Kevin Simmons, Boonville, New York, preserving the Christian publications in 2018, 27 to 28. This is what happened. God had shown Satan to the vicar of his divine Son on earth, just like he did with Job. Satan was bragging that he'd already devastated the church on a large scale. In fact, there were tumultuous times for Italy, for many nations in Europe, and a bit around the world. The Freemasons ruled, and government had not become docile instruments. With the audacity of a boaster, Satan put a challenge to God. And if you give me a little more freedom, you could see what I could do for your church. What would you do? I would destroy it. Oh, that would be something to see. How long would it take? 50 or 60 years? Have more freedom and the time you need. Then we will see what happens. This account in 1947 is the first known report. Well, I'm 75 and I was born in 1946, December the 1st, so My son's father was born in 1947 in August, so it is round about 75 years ago. It's the first known report that Satan and God conversed about the timing of the destruction of the church. So that's where we're headed, and that God assigned a time period for Satan to attempt his coup. Should we trust this story? I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for you or others who will read this or hear this, but I personally can, with all that I've seen in my 75 years of watching, observing, listening, participating, and knowing what's the destruction has not just come upon the Catholic Church, the whole of Christendom, bar the Orthodox, but they must have their issues, but we don't know what they are. All Christians have been under attack and been destroyed in these years. It's not what it used to be, and it's being destroyed from within. That's why I'm sitting here reading this book to you. Father Peshenino's version relates that this leonine vision happened a little time after 1890. This is not altogether accurate, since the prayer to St. Michael for Low Mass was assigned in 1886, and the longer St. Michael exorcism was published in 1890. So, we know right away that the details by Pescino are not entirely trustworthy. Another issue with his dialogue with Satan account is that it seems to be derived from the visions of Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, 1774 to 1824, who in her detached account of the descent into hell states the following, and I'm going to read it now. God himself had decreed this, and I was likewise told, if I remember correctly, that he will be unchained, Frigelasessen, for a time, 50 or 60 years before the year of Christ in 2000. The dates of many other events were pointed out to me, which I do not now remember, that a certain number of demons are to be let loose much earlier than Lucifer, in order to tempt men and to serve as instruments of the divine vengeance. Emmerich, who predates Pescino by a century, refers specifically to the unchaining of Satan for 50 or 60 years. If, however, Pescenino was ignorant of Emmerich, we have a providential agreement of two separate sources, namely that Satan will be loosed for the last 50 or 60 years of the 20th century. There are historical and theological problems with the dialogue account of Pescenino. Nevertheless, we shall discover substantiated examples of infiltration within the Catholic Church. beginning in the 1940s and 1950s, conforming to Emmerich's vision of Satan being unchained in the final 50 or 60 years of the 20th century. Before we observe the weeds crowding our Lord's field, we must first understand how the heretical seeds of modernism were planted in the church at the turn of the century. I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you and heal you. I'm sending you His peace in abundance. May you always be happy and joyful in the Lord, and trust in His mercy and compassion, and always pray the Rosary daily, and the prayer of Holy Michael, the Archangel. You can get all of those online. You can download them. The next chapter I will be doing separately, of course. It will be from infiltration of the church by secret societies and modernism. That is chapter 6 coming next. And Pope Leo XIII, this is his quotation, Custodi di quella fede. Everyone should avoid familiarity or friendship with anyone suspected of belonging to Masonry or to affiliated groups. Know them by their fruits and avoid them. Every familiarity should be avoided, not only with those impious libertines who openly promote the character of the sect, but also with those who hide under the mask of universal tolerance, respect for all religions, and craving to reconcile the maxims of the gospel with those of the revolution. These men seek to reconcile Christ and beguile the Church of God and the state without God. I would advise the same, even though I have to admit that you can't help when you're born into a family and one or two of them join the secret society and you suffer the consequences. You do, women in particular. If your father, like mine, was a Freemason, he didn't ever become a worshipful master. I know that. He died. He got cancer of the blood. He got leukemia and he died before he could go up the ladder. But he nevertheless took the vows, and his baby brother climbed to the top. So I certainly do. I've done videos on Freemasonry already, not knowing I was going to be given this book on the 1st of December for my birthday. But I knew about this book and I had wanted it, and I continue to read it. But anyone who is born into a family that becomes or joins these secret societies, you have to pray for your family if your family are involved in it. My aunt is still alive and she actually knows nothing about it. She's in her 80s. She doesn't know what they did, what they do. But you can find out. There are books on it now. It's not as secret as it was. But it's spiritually a killer. It's the only word I can describe. It will kill you spiritually. It will damage your health in every way. So you have to pray for your relatives that have been involved in it or are involved in it. It's dangerous spiritually for you. Yeah. You'll be cursed. Anyway, thank you for listening. May God bless you and protect you. And don't forget to pray the Rosary.